Deborah, welcome to Invested. But before we kick off, tell us a bit more about this picture that you've got there, that you've chosen.
This is the wonderful Brick Bay Sculpture Trail near Matakana, and it combines my love of modern art with walking. It's a fantastic sculpture trail and a great day out.
So one of your major passions, and I guess because you've been in the industry for a number of years, we won't mention exactly how many, but a few, be fair to say that you've got quite a passion about helping New Zealanders become more financially independent. Would that be the case?
Absolutely.
So thinking about your role as an advisor, what are the things, and you're an authorised financial advisor, what are the things that you do that help New Zealanders become more financially capable?
Okay, well, an AFA, authorised is the key, and an AFA is authorised to give advice on broad financial planning needs, and that includes investments such as KiwiSaver and shares.
Right.
Importantly, they must take into account your particular circumstances in providing that advice. Now, an AFA has qualification and disclosure requirements, has to be a member of a dispute resolution scheme, and has to follow what's called a Code of Professional Conduct under the Financial Advisors Act.
That sounds pretty important. So just let's touch on a couple of the key elements of the code.
Well, David, there are 18 code standards.
It's quite a lot.
But they're grouped into 4 key areas, and they're rules, basically. So think, the first one is ethical behaviour. The second one is client care. The third one is competence, knowledge and skills. And the fourth one is continuing professional training. Now, in my view, that first one, the first ethical behaviour one, is the most important. It's paramount. And it quite clearly states placing the client interests first and acting with integrity. Exactly like a lawyer or accountant has to do. And that's how an AFA can add value, because they're actually advising you on improving your financial position and achieving your goals.
So something that you think that would be a natural expectation for a customer, but it's so great that it's embedded into our code of practice, but more importantly, compared to even other countries, it's well ahead of the curve with advice. And I think when you think about advice and how you provide it, what are the key elements, if you like, that kind of make up a plan, or the things that you look at for your customer?
Okay, well, a financial plan will address 3 key points. Where are you now financially? Where do you want to be, and by when? And what's the gap? You know, what could go wrong along the way?
Right.
So therefore, you should expect your financial planner to ask you lots and lots of questions and gather a huge amount of information from you so that they can determine your current situation and your goals. Then they address issues and make recommendations. And what you should expect is a written financial plan. If you go for advice, it has to be in writing, and there should be an explanation about the recommendations and why those things are being recommended. Most people come to us when there's a turning point in their lives. It could be a career change, it could be loss of a partner, or it could be retirement.
Right.
And I guess the main thing is, do you have enough to spend now, and are you going to have enough throughout retirement? And a good financial planner will also not just focus on money, but other things you can control, like human capital. Maybe you should retrain or work part-time, because I think the big challenge is people, if you're going to have 30 years of retirement,
which is very possible these days,
highly likely,
living longer.
Working, if you can work a bit longer, that can make a really big difference to how much you will have when you do actually stop work, how much you have to spend. And the other thing, I think a lot of people have built up, their biggest asset is their house. So you need to think that a planner will get you to think about how you can get some income out of your house.
How do you know you're on track, though? What are the things that you should be looking at, and what's the role of the advisor on that basis?
Well, yes, people say, how do I know I'm getting value for my advice? Well, I think value is measured in 2 key ways. First of all, it's the progress towards your specific goals. Yep. So are you paying off the mortgage faster? Have you freed up money to save? And that overriding, are you on track for retirement at the age you want with enough income? So it's not about saying, am I getting the highest return or whatever? It's about, am I getting a return that will get me to my goal without freaking me out along the way.
Freaking out, we don't want to be freaking out
That's
about
right,
this.
that's right. So, and you should expect access to your advisor along the way, to answer questions and meetings, etc. So I guess the intangible bit is peace of mind. That's what you should expect, and then you will be getting value.
So all that sounds great. That doesn't come free though, does it?
No.
So talk us through, because there's always something that we pick up a little bit. People want to understand, so what could I expect to pay? How do I actually pay? What are the costs? So do you want to go over some of the detail in that area?
Okay. Well, usually it would be an hourly rate for consultations and plans. So most advisors might charge $200, $250, $300 plus GST per hour for that consultation and finding out, where you're at.
Yes.
Then you should expect a clear scope of work and a written estimate of what the fees are going to be before they do the plan. Now, a plan varies depending on complexity, so it could be $1,500, it could be $2,000, could be $5,000.
So it's
really complex.
Really based on your individual circumstances.
Yep.
And what needs to be taken into scope.
That's right, and you agree that with the advisor before they do it.
Right.
So there shouldn't be any big surprises.
So transparency, hugely
Yes,
important.
and disclosure. You need to know every step of the way what the next fee is likely to be if you go down the next step. And then that leads to, if you have an investment portfolio and you want that managed, let's say you've retired and you've got a lump sum of money and that money has to support you for the rest of your life. Now that fee could be commission, but it's usually fee for service, and it depends on the size of the portfolio.
People want to get started, but they don't know where to start when it comes to looking, to find an advisor even. So what are your thoughts around how people watching this today would be able to kind of start off, and where would be some of the places they could go to get a bit more information to find an advisor?
Well, the first thing you can do is just do an internet search. You'll get lots of ads. You could get a recommendation from friends or family, but pick someone who's had a good long-term relationship with an advisor. That's a good recommendation. Check the FMA website, that's the Financial Markets Authority. They have a register of AFAs. They've also got a good section with 5 questions to ask an advisor when you're looking around. Now, I'm a member of the Institute of Financial Advisors. That's the IFA. We have lots of acronyms in this industry, as you know. So the IFA website lists advisors you can search by city. And then also, when you go to see an advisor, you can ask them for an example of a plan that they've done for someone, or you could ask them for references from clients of theirs.
So that's a good place to start. And you mentioned the FMA have got a list of probably kind of key questions that you should be asking the advisor. What are your thoughts from a personal perspective? What good advice should or could look like? Because that's what we get asked is how do we know it's good advice for me? What would be some of the considerations?
Well, I think some of the things I've already talked about. You'll know it's good advice if your advisor asks you lots of questions.
Great.
Because how can they advise you unless you tell them or show them some bank statements, show them your pay slip, show them how much you're spending? Go back to the basics. They need to understand, and they need to ask you about your goals and objectives and some of those subjective things about what's important to you.
Great.
And so you need to ask how they're going to charge, all the things we've talked about today. Go through those aspects and say, how often am I going to see you if I become a client, and ask for those references.
If New Zealanders want to get started but they may not be able to afford to see an advisor, or they may not have the assets or the information readily available, what would be some of the other things that they could do to get started? Well,
do some legwork to improve financial knowledge. Go to the Sorted website. It's a fantastic resource.
Yes.
This is not a plug, but it is a fantastic resource.
Great.
There's lots of calculators on there: budgeting, goal planner, net worth, mortgage calculator, retirement planner, KiwiSaver. There are 3 tools on KiwiSaver: funds, fees, projector tools. In fact, your own KiwiSaver provider should have a website tool showing you how your fund might grow based on your balance and what you're putting into it. And then you can say, well, is that going to be enough? The other thing is, depending on your stage of life, just focus on what you need. So if you're about to buy your first house, talk to a mortgage broker about how much you can afford to borrow and they'll get you a good deal with a lender. If you've just had a family, talk to an insurance advisor because you're going to need life insurance. So just deal with it in little baby steps along the way. You can go to different banks and find out what savings products they have, what sort of investments they have. I guess the difference is when you go into a bank, they're going to tell you about their products.
That's
and
right.
They're not obliged to make sure it fits you personally. But that's okay. You shop around, you have a look. And then, so basically, I guess the underlying thing is set a good financial foundation for yourself and seek out a planner when things get more complicated.
Deborah, thanks so much for coming on Investor Today and talking about the value of advice, how to get started, how it works, and more importantly, how it helps New Zealanders improve their financial well-being. And I hope you enjoy a lot more walks and sculptures and visits in the coming years as well.
Oh, thanks, David. It's been a pleasure and really good to try and demystify financial planning.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.